It was the sudden appearance of a warp storm at the Kaurava system's outer edge that first caught the attention of the Imperium, and not just the Imperium. After hundreds of years under the neglectful watch of the Imperial Guard, nearly every force in the galaxy would descend upon the planet of Kaurava, bent only on domination and victory. 3 races had long dwelled in there. The Imperial Guard, its supposed rulers, the Orc tribes of Kaurava II, which the Guard had never successfully put down, and the Necron, who had slept undisturbed for untold millennia beneath Kaurava III. Where the Chaos Marines came from, or how, none can say. Did the Warp Storm bring them, or did they bring the Warp Storm? Both appeared suddenly on Kaurava IV, and in an eye blink, half the system's Imperial forces were gone, killed or claimed by the madness of chaos. In quick succession, the others flocked to Kaurava. The Space Marines, the Imperium's super soldiers, descended on Kaurava II, planning to finally cleanse the system, both of the troublesome Orcs and the Chaos Marines, the sworn mortal enemies. The Tau appeared next, not far above, on one of the planet's moons. In the interests of protecting its ordered empire from the effects of human folly, the Tau came seeking to contain the Warp Storm, and in so doing, expand the territory's border. On their moon, they built a mighty fortress, and there forged a space cannon capable of interplanetary devastation. Among the wastes of Kaurava III, the Necrons, perhaps awakened by the disruptive forces of the Warp Storm, slowly massed their lethal legions. In quick response, webway gates, long unused, flickered to life, and Eldar poured forth, ready to battle their dark, death-dealing adversaries. Meanwhile, in the shadow of an ancient portal gate, the dark Eldar slipped stealthily out of the murky depths of the webway. They would be like carrion birds, flying above the battlefield, and when all were weary from the fight, make the battlefield into a feasting ground. Last to arrive, and perhaps most to be feared, were the Sisters of Battle, holy maidens and bearers of the God Emperor's faith. They had come to cleanse the system of corruption and filth. Their faith left them fanatical, unafraid of death and zealous in their cause. Nothing here was clean. All must be purged. Now, war rages anew, and only the victorious may write their history. Only the victorious will claim the planets of Kaurava. The Sisters of Battle rely greatly on their faith. It is their sustenance and their shield. When they first came to the tainted world of Kaurava, Confessor Turganum March was quick to see how much holy light and fire it would take to cleanse the 4 planets. He therefore brought the living Saint Anais and placed her in their primary bastion in Sama on Kaurava I. Following a secret and ancient practice, the living saint was imbued with the inviolable aura, an aura of invincibility which would prevent any chance, he thought, of defeat. Guarded at the last by this inviolable aura, the Sisters of Battle marched with great surety. Who, in truth, would dare oppose them? What adversary could faith and fire not sweep from before them? In the face of chaos and vile aliens, the Sisters of Battle merely redoubled their fervent prayers and penances and fought on. They came to believe that glorious victory was the only outcome. The idea that any would dare attack their mighty bastion was unthinkable. The possibility that their bastion could fall beyond belief.
Good, she comes.
Sisters, the living holy saint of the Emperor, Saint Ananias, scourge of heretics.
Go, go!
Sisters, we must go as martyrs! We must go in flames!
Storm them! Go, go, go! Storm them! Charge! On my mark! Charge!
In flames!
On my mark! Charge! Go, go, go!
When the Sisters of Battle arrived in the Kaurava system, General Stubbs knew there was only one way he and his guardsmen would make it through alive. No victory or act of penitence could clear them from suspicion by the reckoning of those ecclesiarchal zealots. Knowing that he had done no wrong and unwilling to submit to inquisitorial reconditioning, the general prepared for battle. At first, Stubbs had hoped that the enemies of the Imperium would spare him the unwelcome task of pitting his men against the feared and dreaded Sisters of Battle. Unfortunately, Stubbs did not feel he had the luxury of waiting for mutual enemies to do his dirty work. He resolved on a bold and desperate move to attack the Sisters of Battle's headquarters directly before they could come to him. With the advantage of surprise on their side, the 252nd Regiment, although weak of will and faith, showed themselves stronger in arms and armor than the pious Sisters of Battle. This extraordinary feat surprised even General Stubbs, and on congratulating his troops afterwards, he remarked that it was certain proof that the Emperor had willed the Imperial Guard to hold dominion over the Kaurava system. It was no secret that it was the war-boss Gorguts himself who led the Wa in the Kaurava conflict. But who were the orcs he led? Imperial records indicate that these orcs had always been in Kaurava, going back at least a millennium. It seems that when Gorguts arrived, they welcomed him as a long-awaited hero. These rugged Kauravan orcs had sometimes overrun the system's 4 planets, and sometimes been beaten back to their secret stronghold in the Rockclaw Mountains. There had never once been a successful attempt to breach the vast hideout there, and the orcs believed there never could be. But in the past, these orcs had always retreated to this place in great numbers at the first sign of defeat. Gorgut saw such behavior as un-orky. He insisted that you had to take a bolter round or two if you wanted to win, and Gorguts lived only to win. Gorgut's strategy meant that the orc stronghold was not invincible, but this did not mean that it was undefended. Reaching the lair was one thing. Penetrating its defenses was entirely another.
You see, Big Boss Gorgut, this here's the strongest and bestest orc horde has ever held an orc.
Oh, is that so then?
Ain't no Yumi's got in here ever. With the Rockclaw Mountains all round us, there's only one way in. Even if there was to get in, they'd have all the boys to face. Oh, and the knobs, and the tanks. Then there's the squig-offs.
Say they beat all that?
That's when we get them with the fighter bombers. We'd squash them to a pulp. We got watchers watching day and night. Nobody but an orc gets close to us without we see them and crush them to smithereens. Boss! Boss! There's enemies in the camp! What? In the camp? We gotta stop them before they gets to the killy spot. Them drums! Beat the drums! Get to 'em!
What's this here killy spot?
Beat the drums! We've got to hold the killy spot!
Bestest orc horde ever, huh? enough of this. Come on, boys. Let's get out of here.
The Kaurava system had known strife between the Orcs and the Imperial Guard long before the present conflict, in the form of isolated outbreaks and outright war. But before this time, the Guardsmen had faced the Kauravan Orcs alone, who were never as organized or aggressive as now, under the leadership of War Boss Gorguts. Unfortunately for the Orcs, the Imperial Guard was also fighting under a new leader. The determined General Stubbs dogged Gorguts right into the Rocklaw Mountains, farther than the Imperial Guard had ever penetrated, and there dealt his Wa a mortal blow. While the Orcs of Kaurava were thoroughly defeated, less is known concerning the great Orc warboss himself. Imperium scanner logs indicate that an Orc craft did take off from the scene, but any other information was lost to the heat of the battle. The Guardsmen of the 252nd Regiment, who had fought in the Battle of Rocklaw, took on the proud moniker of Orcsbledders, and the mountain itself came to be known as Stubbs Peak. The vast Tau military complex on Kaurava II's second moon had always been intended for purposes above and beyond the current war. In a Tau-dominated solar system, this complex would become a key outpost on the Empire's border. This moon base had been named Nan Yanoi, or Sword Moon, referring to the powerful Arca cannon built there. This weapon could fire its devastating ion beam on any territory of any planet in the system. Heavy fortifications and anti-aircraft arrays were not enough for the Earth-cast architects of Nan Yanoi. To these, they added an ambitious orbital perimeter defense system, which would fire ion beams similar to that of the Arca cannon, tuned to harm only intruders and spare Nan Yanoi's infrastructure from any damage. When complete, Nan Yanoi would be unassailable. Unfortunately, the Tau stronghold was attacked before it was complete. Many systems and fortifications were not yet fully operational, including the perimeter defense system. An invasion fleet could be shot down, but they could not as easily protect against a small force from making a beachhead at one of the gaps in the Tau's outer defenses. Such a feat would be extraordinarily difficult, but it might just be possible.
We welcome your gracious presence, Aun Royu.
I see that our Earth-cast engineers have made splendid progress in constructing the Nan Yanoi base station.
Yes, Your Eminence, it is nearly complete. There are only a few gaps remaining in our perimeter defenses, and they are heavily guarded until our orbital defense system is fully operational.
Setting stabilizers. Ready to fire.
Excellent. And this Arca cannon you have built, quite a marvel, as I understand it.
Indeed. From this moon, we can fire on any habitable territory in the Kaurava system. Do you wish to inspect it yourself? It harms only advanced life forms, thus avoiding damage to structures and plant life.
This is indeed most commendable.
Our orbital defenses were built using the same technology. Both are controlled from this location.
What is that? The perimeter has somehow been breached. I must attend to this. Please, Your Excellence, return to the Coalition Center. Yes, that may be best. Dispatch Pathfinders, locate the source of the breach, and see that they do not gain entrance and establish a foothold. Notify all Fire Warriors and Crute Carnivore squads. Let us hope that our defenses are strong enough to hold them.
All right, men. We need to make a beachhead and fast. First, we need to break through these outer defenses.
Cut them down! Noble ethereal! Oh, we have lost you! We have lost all!
General Vance Stubbs' heroic conquest of the Nan Yanoi moonbase meant the end of any true Tau threat to the Kaurava system. In fact, the breach of their technologically advanced fortress and the death of their ethereal rendered the Kaurava conflict a bitter memory to the Tau. It would be centuries before the Tau would again consider any attempt to expand into Kaurava. Before the troops, General Stubbs showed disdain for the impressive Tau fortifications and battlements. Even if the outpost had sustained little damage in the assault, it would be unbecoming of pious servants of the Imperium to show too much interest in alien and heretical technology. More quietly, however, Stubbs had many Tau artifacts and weapons secreted to Segmentum Command, knowing well that he could curry favor among his superiors if their study should reveal new insights into Tau military function. While his men celebrated, looted, and vandalized the Xeno stores, General Stubbs smiled to think of the progress he was making on an undeniably ambitious career path. The Blood Ravens had learned the value of speed and mobility through hard battlefield experience. Force Commander Boreal, who had studied under the famed Commander Angelos, sought to make his reliance on stationary defensive structures as small as possible. Therefore, rather than build up the Space Marines' Central Command, entire companies were reserved in the fleet above Kaurava II. These would be ready to deep strike with deadly speed into any territory, including the Blood Raven's own headquarters. If attacked by an enemy, drop pods would cover the Marine stronghold in a steely, thunderous hail, swarming the Space Marines' enemies with super soldiers and dreadnoughts. Force Commander Boreal was sure of his plan. His greatest weapon was, after all, the superiority of the Space Marines themselves. Who could weather such a rapid and devastating defensive tactic?
Commander Boreal, enemy forces in our perimeter.
Where?
Southern Quadrant, but they were on the move. Current location unknown.
There is no time to be lost. Battle, brothers! Space Marines, today the enemy is at our door. We know our duty and we will do it. We fight for our honor as Blood Ravens, as Space Marines, and we fight in the name of the Emperor! And if we die this day, we die in glory. We die heroes' deaths, but we shall not die. No, it is the enemy who will taste death and defeat, as you know. Most of our battle brothers are stationed in space, prepared to deep strike. Our perimeter has been prepared in the event that our enemies should be so bold and so foolish. We have placed numerous beacons, allowing for multiple, simultaneous, and devastating defensive deep strikes. Codex Astartes names this maneuver Steel Rain. We will descend upon the foe. We will overwhelm them. We will leave none alive. Meanwhile, our ground forces will ensure the full defense of our headquarters. We are the Space Marines. We are the Emperor's Fury. Failed. The Emperor.
The fact that General Van Stubbs was forced to attack the Space Marines directly was, to him, merely an unfortunate necessity of the war. Stubbs had every respect for Force Commander Boreal. After his Imperial Guard forces had outgunned and overpowered the Blood Ravens, he felt great regret that the commander's life could not have been spared. That, of course, was impossible. No Force Commander would ever flee or surrender while his company fought and died. The few Blood Raven Space Marines who had been unable to die honorably were given prompt medical treatment and dispatched to Segmentum Command. The dead were given all the honors and funeral rites due to their station. These proceedings, however, did not for an instant deter General Stubbs from installing a company of his guardsmen in the lands of solitude, or laying claim to the usable munitions and other equipment left intact. The loss of good Imperial Space Marines was regrettable, General Stubbs reflected. But the charter of his regiment and his own personal ambitions had, after all, left him only one course of action.